So I started this journey almost 8 years back when medical entrepreneurship was still in its nascent stages. I always tell people the future is innovation in healthcare, and just like how Mr. Narayan Murthy started Infosys, and that's the way innovation is going to lead us in future. And so today I will try to answer the questions like why, what, how, what is the role of the mentor, and if time permits, few of the lessons I learned during my journey. Now, why is this talk happening today? It's because the government has got a huge goal of achieving $5 trillion economy, and studies have shown one of the things which is going to stand in its way in a big way is healthcare of the people of India, especially with the non-communicable diseases increasing, the rural population of more than 60 years increasing, and added to that the huge healthcare costs of India was coming in the way. And the government wanted to use its experience in the technological side into the medical side. And that's why we are having this talk. Now, before we get into that, we have to understand why should doctors get in before we talk about institutions and all that. This might look funny, but I always say this is the most important thing because like politics, healthcare is local. What do you mean by that? I get so many, people from the technical side coming and telling, oh, this is a huge idea I've got. Then I tell them, either you read it in Google or you've gone to US and want to implement it here, which is not going to happen because both have got a different system of healthcare, both have got a different system of payout, and the diseases are also not the same on either side. And majority of them forget that we doctors come under Consumer Protection Act, meaning someone should be accountable either for the device or the problems arising because of us using the startup idea or the startup product. Whenever I come out with an innovative product, I always say I put the onus on the medical professional. I don't say the startup will do everything for you. I always say the onus should be on the doctor because that's the way the law works. And many people want to disrupt the healthcare industry. How can you disrupt the industry without disrupting the people who are going to use that? When we came out with our laryngoscope, this was the first one. We used a handheld model. The blade which we used was the existing Macintosh Miller blades, so that the anesthetists are going to use it are much more comfortable, and the time needed is going to be very much less. What we did was we came out with a solution wherein the doctor's camera acts as both a light source as well as for recording. The reason I came out with this was I see so many patients coming to me after surgery with a hoarse voice saying, oh, I think the doctor has done this, doctor has done that. So the doctor should have proof to say, look, post-surgery, your voice box was clear. And that was the goal. And we sell this only to doctors. We don't sell it to hospitals directly. Two, as doctors, we know clinical validation is going to play a major role. The first thing I always do is I always give my products to government teaching hospitals. Why? Because there the volume is going to be so huge. If my product is going to help them there, then it's going to be useful everywhere else. Like this was the first one which was used at a general hospital in Chennai. And this is our latest natal laryngoscope, which is being used in Trichy. And we will be doing studies and publishing the results. The same thing, when we came out with our UV bot, we wanted to, this was even before Corona came. The idea of me coming out with this was, when I returned from US, I knew that the hospital rooms are not getting disinfected. So that was the purpose of me coming out. But when we tested it at, pediatric ICU in a government hospital, we learned so many things, the ease of movement, the ease of getting into the lift, ease of, turning around tight corners. Then we came out with this model, and this is the current model which we're using. And same, the feedback makes a huge difference, which doctors will be able to understand. When we are, trying to go to the next model, the doctor said, can you have something wherein our PGs can also learn? That's when we came out with this Wi-Fi model, wherein the professor can even stay outside and see what's happening. And the image can be transmitted to the Android TV on a big screen. and the residents, the nursing staff, everyone can watch what is happening. And as doctors, we know what works, what doesn't work. Like there has been a huge thing whenever you Google, artificial intelligence, you'll always get one thing wherein they say artificial thermography is being used for early detection of breast cancer. But right from FDA to our Indian Breast Association have said thermal imaging should not be used for detection of breast cancers. But we know it. The next thing, a disease has got so many parameters for treatment. It's not just only one parameter. Like whenever, I'm sure you all would experience, a patient comes with diabetes or hypertension, medications are not immediately started. People are told to change their lifestyle, their diet. Only if it doesn't work, it's being started. But the technical people will not understand. And they get into a product only to find it's not helping them. And data, this is going to be a major role for staff and faculty at institutions like AIIMS. The reason I put it is when we wanted to come out with some early solutions, I tied up with the railway hospital. We got close to about 25,000 images, and we did want to come out with some algorithm. All that the machine could do was identify this is optic disc, that too only at 80% accuracy. So you can imagine the amount of data we need for us to come out with any practical algorithm. So such amount of data can happen only if doctors are going to get involved, especially doctors at institutions like AIIMS or in any teaching hospital. The reason I, stating this slide is to say healthcare, one of the biggest drawback is going to be expecting the consumers or patients to pay for the product. Either they are not willing or they cannot afford to do it. I started cochlear implant programs, and when at that time the indigenous implant was coming in, so I knew the person who was innovating it. So I was discussing, and then I got an opportunity to write a paper. What are the challenges? When I was writing this paper, I was shocked to find out, the implants were failing, not for any reason, but the patients were not able to afford to travel for rehab, and they were not able to afford the batteries which they need to change. Everything is working out because if they're going to move out from their hometown, they have to pay for the bus fare. The child has got to miss the nutrition meal, which is the only meal the child is getting on that day. So these are the factors which, that technically will not have anything, but we see such patients every day, and we know. So in spite of all these advantages, why are doctors not getting in? Though there are so many factors, I've been trying, the last 5 years, I've given so many talks. I have spoken to my colleagues in private hospitals and corporates, telling them, jump in, this is the time. But when I started, in fact, people are laughing at me, thinking I am a fool because I had such a good practice. Then, just jumping in, they thought, something was wrong with me. But one of the major factor is they didn't know anything about the technical side. They didn't know how to go about it, nor what they should do, what they should not do. Technical counterparts have such a strong system. They also started like this, just like how we are starting now. Institutions like IITs had the same thing almost about 15, 20 years back. But now they have got such a robust system wherein the research happening in the institute is converted into product through the incubators, which helps in everything, which I will tell you in the later slides. And the system is so robust that they are innovative system, and the startup system is working so well, so much so that within the last decade, they generated close to about $106 billion, with the IITs alone contributing close to about $70 billion. And India ranks number 3rd in the world for having the most number of unicorns. A unicorn is someone who has got, something about 7,000 crores. And, because based on the success of, such institutes, the government initially wanted to bring it to the other technical institutes. So they started a lot of things. One of them was the Atal Innovation Mission under Niti Aayog. And they wanted to start incubators in other institutions of, higher education institutions and technical and other colleges. And now we are seeing so many incubators being started everywhere. And at that time, the government also came out with the national innovation startup policy, wherein it says all the colleges where you're going to get into innovation or where you have an incubator, that should be standard policy. You can tweak it a little bit, but it should fall under all these guidelines. And all these are things which will be even used at medical colleges. And while the technical people were getting into the startups and they were helping in the economy, the healthcare was having its own set of woes. We all know the doctor patient ratio where it's around 1 is to 10,000, and there was also huge lack of doctors in the rural areas. So much so it was leading to so much of animosity between the patients and the doctors. We have been reading it quite frequently in the newspapers. And things changed once COVID came in. COVID is both, it affected the country as well as it has done enormous good for healthcare. During the peak of COVID, the government utilized the technology to its best of benefits. It was able to achieve all the three goals which technology should provide, meaning healthcare access. It helped, where there is a bed availability, where you can go, you can get admitted in the government. Next, affordable healthcare. Patients rules were made that you cannot charge more than this for if any patients coming through the government. For private, they didn't put any rule. And quality, they ensured the quality was not getting affected. And best thing was, the National Health Mission, which was started few years back. In fact, I gave a talk about this for about 1.5 hours. There are so much of digital mission objectives which are happening, which I'm sure only very handful in this hall will even know. They utilize it to the best of their capacity during COVID. And interestingly, when I was giving the talk, one of the co-speaker was from one of the IITs, and he told me, during the peak, the Prime Minister gave requested them or gave a mandate for them to come out with some protocol which will help in early detection of severe cases of COVID, so that only severe patients can get admitted, and that's how we had that COVID, scoring of grade 1 to 5. And also, he also instructed them to come out with real-time bed availability. That changed things. We know initially how much, there was so much of struggle, but later on everything smoothened out. It is because of this. And so the government wanted to use all this, and it was also, wanted to change the face of healthcare. It increased the funding for the healthcare by about 138%, apart from starting, PHCs and other rural centers. Now, the government also realized that innovation is going to be the way forward, not only to achieve its target, but also to overcome some of the lacunae which is presenting as of now. And India is in a unique position. Our healthcare sector is booming. We have got private players coming in. The Niti Aayog has come out with a white paper on how the investors can benefit from investing in healthcare. And the Honorable Prime Minister has always been saying, "Make in India, Startup India," and he always said the startups and technology is the way in which the country can grow. So it's all fine, but how are you going to overcome some of the pertinent challenges of getting into entrepreneurship? Especially, you can have, everyone has got an idea. In a startup world, I always say the value of an idea is zero. It's converting the idea into a POC and a product that's a challenge. So, and you can see there's so many challenges here. So, and for a faculty who's associated here or for an institute, it's going to be very tough for it to look after these challenges also and, spend money. And one of the shortcuts was for institutes to collaborate with IITs who have got already a robust system in place, guiding the medical institutes on how they can go about it and utilizing their know-how for us to start up with. And apart from that, now UGC has also come out with guidelines saying IITs need not have to limit themselves to teaching technical thing. They can also get into medical education. And we'll be seeing, more and more IITs getting involved in this. Already IIT Guwahati has got a land. I know IIT Chennai will be starting. IIT Bombay has already been doing this. So irrespective of they're going to do it or not, the IITs are going to enter. So, what can we do for innovation to start at AIIMS? The main purpose of the talk, the only reason I gave the few slides is for us to understand why it is necessary for faculty to involve in innovation at AIIMS. Now, I'm going to use a very new word. I'm not sure how many of you know intrapreneur. Each and everyone sitting here in this hall is an intrapreneur. What do you mean by that? You're using the facilities, the technology available in your institute to come out with solutions. Like if you want to diagnose a patient, what do? You investigate, you use a facility, you don't take the patient out. You do the test for you to come out with a diagnosis. So in the same way, and this is what the IITs have been doing. They've been utilizing the facilities available, converting intrapreneurship into entrepreneurship. And they can decide whether they want to be and stay as a faculty and just come out, or leave it and start their own companies. And as I said, you have such a robust thing. You've got PGs, you've got SRs, you've got all the facilities, you've got access to journals, you've got clinical materials. So there, you have everything for you to get into innovation and research. So all that you have to do is you have to just change the focus from going to basic research to clinical research. Now there has been even, and I'll tell in the next few slides, even the government is pushing, saying that whatever you do, it needs to be original research, it needs to be meta-analysis, and it should be published in a high-index journal. The next thing will be changing the technique, the clinical research into translating into patient care. And this is what I said, the government is pushing for this, where the NMC has said, if you want to have a promotion, you got to meet certain criteria. It's not going to accept the earlier criteria. It's come out. The new guidelines will be starting very soon from this 2022. And you can see your citation index. That's going to be the main thing, meaning you have to publish it in a very good journal. And for that, it needs to be an original research. The government is also pushing for people. Yesterday when myself and Dr. Amit were talking to their residents and also to the MMT graduates, I was telling them, they can even utilize the government funds through DHR to visit other institutions, to go international. They can do a research topic. The government is doing everything for you to get into research so that the research can translate into clinical outcomes. And the ultimate goal will be to create an environment wherein there is going to be so much of clinical research happening that it translates into solutions to help the society as well as the national economy. And this is what it will look like once we achieve, which the IITs have achieved, and now we are going to start. And they also came out with NIRF parameters, where if you notice 3 things, the research contains about 100 points, which is about 30%. The perception, when you do good research, naturally you're going to be looked up. The perception is also going to change. That is also going to add. And very soon you'll be seeing that your NIRF status is linked to the funding you're going to receive. So, now it's all good. So yes, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Yes, you got ideas. You came out with this one, which is going to translate. But how are we going to take it to the market? And that's what we call it as a valley of death. For each and every product which come out, it takes so much of time for me to find out. Then I have a very good partner who's a MTech from IIT. We both are running the company, and he devises a lot of things. So he said we have to find out ways. So he developed his own bioprinter. So if someone gives a feedback, immediately within a week we come out with a product. And but not many people can do it, especially with the faculties. And then you have to protect your IP. So even for that, the government is saying, we'll have an office of liaison office to protect your IP, to guide you, to fund you, to find out people who can utilize your product so that it becomes a product and not just stays there as an IP. So once everything is ready, you can see you will have this honeycomb, wonderful honeycomb, where people just keep on innovating and you keep on coming products. So now, Now we have to answer a very, very, very pertinent question. As a faculty or as an institution, you are here. What is that you're going to gain extra? Yes, I agree, my promotion. Yes, I agree, we are going to help, but we are already overburdened. What is there for us? Especially, when you see the comparison of the salaries which our counterparts get and us, you can see there's a huge gap. They do these things because the students, they can utilize this to get a good job. So what is there for a doctor? The same question was also asked by Niti Aayog. They said, how can we induce the clinical research? What is that the researchers can receive in return? Yes, if you want to do, we also need to ensure the faculty are also gain something, the institution gains something. And, this I'll say is going to be one of the biggest policy shift by the government of India to promote entrepreneurship and innovation at institutions like AIIMS, wherein the ICMR DHR came out with lots of guidelines, which is going to be very, very, very beneficial both to the institution, to the faculty, and to the students. They said they asked the institutions to come out with a framework for their own startup policy, how they're going to start the IPR and all that. The government is also going to help them with all the funding and how they can transfer the IP into a product. And these are going to be changes wherein the faculty can be part of the company which is going to take up. The faculty can hold equity, but only thing is you cannot be a full-time. If you want to be a full-time, even for that, they are allowing wherein you can take 2 years of sabbatical leave, go try being an entrepreneur. If you don't like, you can always come back and be an intrapreneur. So, the thing is that the government wants the doctors to try out to be an innovator, and so that the income coming from all the IPs helps in generating money, helps in boosting the economy, helps in solving the social problem. And that's the ultimate aim, so that there is going to be a sustainable healthcare which will help us in achieving the $5 trillion economy. Other thing is, now it's also saying, when I was doing my fellowship, the Striker was, having this device which has now come into the market. They wanted to validate. Now the company is saying the same thing the faculty can also do, not only for medical devices, even for drug testing, you can do it, you can get involved, and you can get paid. The institution also will get paid. For all this, the institution can also have a stake up to maximum of 10%. And it's formulating guidelines where it wants the students, faculty know about all this. It wants the students, faculty know how to do IPR, and how they can go about it, what are the products they can do, how to do it, and all that. And so this is going to be the ultimate aim, so that any academic entrepreneurship program will have a wonderful thing of the academic activities going on simultaneously, and you're also going to entrepreneurship and innovation and product development happening side by side. This is what the IITs have done. They achieved this wonderfully. This I took it from the IIT Bombay thing. You can see how the faculty, PhD, everyone is getting involved in research. The government is helping them, and even the products, the R&D, the end product is helping the government. It helps in training the future people. It helps the industry, and it helps the society. So this is going to be a wonderful thing which will also be happening in the medical side. And I'm just going to say a few things. Any innovation from the medical side is always should happen between the technical and the medical professionals. I always insist on that. You cannot get a solution or product with only the technical people being involved or only the doctors going to be involved, because it is interwoven. And I always say this as techno-medico experts. My company, which we started, I am a doctor and my partner is a technical person. So whenever he comes up with an idea, I'll tell him it will work, it will not work. If it works, then we get in. And then we find out ways how to make it work. All this will be possible only when it's going to be a team. Mentors, the reason I put it is, Before the ICMR DHR policy came in, it was found one of the challenges for any product or anything to come out is a good mentor, a mentor who knows how to do things, how to bring it out. And the mentor also will help in analyzing the product. Like before I came in here, I had arranged a meeting between staff at a government medical college and one of the IIT, and there were so many products which was being discussed, so I have to be a liaison between them, telling the IITs what is that we want, and telling the medical people what is that they can expect. Because yes, it's all new. When I jumped in, I never had any idea what is an incubator, what do you mean by bootstrapping. When people were talking, I just used to look at them and shake my head as if I knew. I never knew anything. I never knew what is artificial intelligence, what is algorithm. But that's a way, we all learn. When you are going to join medical college or as a postgraduate, we don't know, we learn. And some of the things which I want to you all to get involved will be the artificial intelligence. This is going to be the future of predicting the disease, future of preventive healthcare, to tell who's going to get a cancer, who's going to get a disease. We are currently working on few projects where we are trying to identify risk factors for chronic diseases. I don't want to say the diseases because it's all about who's going to get it first. And now we are getting into early identification of head and neck cancer, cervical cancer, and breast cancer, where we are using artificial intelligence to come out with algorithms. This I put it because you would have heard about the term IoT. Everyone says IoT, IoT, IoT. IoT is nothing but it is a system. Like I'll just this is what IoT. When I said the real time, there my partner was doing it in Chennai and I was sitting in Bangalore and I was recording it. Okay, and you can see it's real time. We used IoT to transmit the images, and it can be seen in real time. And now we are working on the IoT enabled anaphylactic detector. This came out when I was talking to some of the my colleagues. They said, look, in a rural hospital, when the nurse puts, if there is going to be a delay, then there is going to be air getting in. Can we do something about it? And two, when you're going to give chemo, if there is going to be reaction, can we do something which will detect it? So that's where we are now getting in. And we are also trying to convert any room into something where the doctor can be there. So you need not have to be in the ICU always. You can move out of the ICU, you can be at your home. And there are so many players, but it failed because they didn't analyze the cost factor. So we are working on something where it can be easily done and easily be implemented. This other project where I'm getting involved, what we call it as a VOC, where we are going to use your breath to detect diseases. The POC is already ready, and we'll be starting the trials very soon. We're going to use it for early detection of certain cancers, especially head and neck cancer. And then we are going to increase it to lung cancer and breast cancer. So, all this can be done in the rural area where a patient comes in, he just blows out and you can find out. And this is a project, which I restarted. This is the one which made me to jump into entrepreneurship. When I was appointed as the India head for, this project wherein we wanted to use genetically modified bacteria and virus to treat diseases like cholesteatoma and head and neck cancers. Yes, it was a science fiction, but it was doable. They already identified the bacteria and the virus. It was already getting modified. So then I, jumped in to see how we can bring it here, how we can work together so that, because India has got a huge number of cholesteatoma and head and neck cancers. But when I jumped in, that's when I realized, there is such a shortage. People didn't understand what I wanted. And that's because most of these incubators were sitting in a technical institute. And at that time, there were not many. There were just about a handful. That's when I decided, someone needs to take a plunge. We have to change it. And this was one, which forced me to jump in. Yes, we set up a lot of things. We had our own lab. We had, PSG was involved in the project. So they started all the new mice and all that. And but it was shelved after Mr. Trump came in. A lot of things happened. Now we are restarting. IIT has come out with their own genomic sequencing and all that. So we are going to restart this. And the reason I put this in, even yesterday or wherever I go, people think it's not doable. And as medical professionals, we always need scientific proof. I always say, here is a specimen standing on the podium telling you it is doable. I have been doing it. I have been having a very good practice. I still practice. I still get involved into innovations, entrepreneurship. I go to institute, I give talks. It's not because, I want them, but this is the future. It's going to be our children or our grandchildren who are going to feel the pinch of it if we are not going to get involved. It's not just about us, it's about the future. And I really hope we can see some docpreneurs coming out of this institution. And all it needs is one or two to act as a catalyst for others to jump in. It's always like that. Once they see someone successful, now people are seeing me, and every day I get a call from some doctor or the other saying, how can I do this, how can I do that? So now ultimately this can take it to the next level only at institutions like AIIMS. When I started, I had to go through so many people to find out who can validate it, how I can get funding, how to arrange for the proof of concept and all that. But here, you have everything. It helps you in a promotion. It helps you in a future. The institution, the image the institution gets is huge. The institution also benefits, commercially. So it's going to be a win-win for everyone involved. And I was telling Dr. Amit, this was my 8th revision of the slide, because initially I put so many slides and he said, no, we should allow the people to ask questions. So with this, I just like to, finish my talk, and I will open to you all to ask questions, and let me see if I can help out. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. This was a very interesting talk. I'm a student.
I think someone has.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to thank you for such an interesting talk. I am a student in
One
medical
minute. How can
technologies.
we show the audio? How can we play the audio? Which is just a minute, because nobody else is able to hear.
Oh,
Hello. Can you talk now?
sir, yes. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to thank you very much for such an interesting and motivating talk. I am myself a medical technology student, so I really enjoyed your talk. So,
Thank you, Ma.
Wonderful talk, sir. Basically, your idea is fantastic, and every day we all do get a dream. I will say what you call idea. We do all get the dream that if I could have done that, if I can do that, and dream to be realized on ground and to be converted into the reality in the society is really a tough task. And as we old timers, above 60s, we always think of seeing the patient, prescribing the drug, and end of it. But now definitely our AIIMS is taking the longer stride.
Correct.
We will start an MD PhD program.
Correct.
We are also collaborating with the IIT Jodhpur.
Correct.
Certainly, VOC, which you have talked about last year, we had the meeting with the IIT professors and everybody. And at present also we are talking to them about the VOCs, of the interest, and I also suggest that yes, every cell gets some different metabolism, some protein products, they get metabolized, and definitely they come out of the urine, all different. There are the two way of the things which come out.
Correct.
And either you use the proteomics or you use the VOCs. Those products, if we can identify that, we make the diagnosis earlier and easier. And definitely, we all have to think and we have to proceed, and somewhere, definitely, we should intermingle technology and medical science and it will benefit both each other. And really great idea, and congratulations to you that 8 years back in the formative year you started, and really it's put a lot of effort to realize a new idea where the society not accept, and because you have the financial independence in the form of good practice, so you could venture upon other side. That is the another aspect. But definitely the nowadays funding is available with many of the government sectors, and government is coming out with the fundings, and more and more people I think will venture upon entrepreneurship to entrepreneurship, and definitely we will achieve some milestones in the coming future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In fact, the government even gives funding for you to start infrastructure and building just for innovation department. It gives even up to about 10 crores for a period of 5 to 6 years for you to have a building just for innovation and entrepreneurship. So.
Talked about IITs opening medical colleges. Now, medical colleges taken undergrad students. That's not the way to go forward. Because you want to invest so much of money and then create undergraduate students. It would be not
Correct.
So it's important that we working together. There are enough medical colleges in this where you could have creating another infrastructure with joining as doctors and you know how difficult it is
Correct.
to get good faculty. The second thing is somehow in our undergraduate curriculum and postgraduate, there is no such thing as a protected time or a person to be wanting to do something which is more than beyond what is taught in his own curriculum. It is so tightly packed that cannot really go around much except for your summer vacations and individual ability. And we also have to examine things at that level to be looking at this. We've got enough bright young minds. People with the lateral thinking, out of the box thinking, whatever you want to call it. But then they do come up with wonderful ideas. And as you correctly said, the problem has to be identified by the doctor at present. And he or she can be the best person to tell or advise that how to, what sort of a thing that they need, because the technical person can work together. Technocrat cannot simply develop the idea and execute it for patient management because the systems work
Different, yes.
It's a wonderful talk, and I think we should see more people and more people in India stuff in our paper.
I'll just answer both your questions. I know it was a suggestion. In fact, the same thing, I don't want to mention the IIT in the open thing, but it seems there has been some words saying the same, like let's not waste money to start into a new medical college. Let's join with the existing ones and use the same, wherein we encourage doctors to get into research. So that's going to happen very soon in one of the top IITs, and it's going to be done at a policy level. That is one. Two, coming to it, yes, what I tell them is, even I told the same thing to one of the IITs where we're having discussion. Anyhow, the PGs need to do a dissertation, okay, as a thesis for to get their degree. So what I tell them is, instead of doing something for the sake of doing, think of, an object in your own area, in your own specialty, which can become a product within 3 years. And, all they need to do is finish a thesis, then they can decide. So, I may be wrong, but thesis will be the best way for us to bring, and that's what, in IIT, Kanpur or Kharagpur, if you see, there is so much of wonderful products on the medical side where they have done a dissertation, but it stays as a dissertation because they are not keen to take it forward.
We started our master's in medical technology and PhD with IIT. AIIMS starting was not, the work should not just end with the research, good publication, and the story and say, it should lead to a company, you should have the industry on board coming in and leads to a product which sees the market not what you referred to every great comes, the value of that, so good, and but I think that is the the medical institutions have to open up more, the engineering institutions have opened up, they've always been open. But here when you talk of creating a company, GP, there everybody starts questioning the intentions, everybody starts questioning that, oh, you're not going to do application, you're not going to be doing this, not going to be doing that. But then if you look at the picture, you're looking at something in developing which will have a larger impact. I know someone in the US who was a ENT surgeon, and he cut down his clinical work among the top institutions because he was a fantastic researcher, a surgeon, and a researcher. And he increased his salary from 1 million to around 1.5 million because he was delivering so much of the research fund. So that he cut down his million already. Because you have to be looking at things in different ways.
Very inspiring talk, sir. I'm Dr. Deepak here, I'm a researcher. Cost-effective innovation at one bringing these products to the market is a very long process.
Correct.
Already existing corporate companies which are selling at costly treatments, observing the sale of products. Don't you think that they will try everything not to allow these production? Certainly.
Definitely, they are going to try. This happens everywhere, not only in medical device, even in pharma we have seen. But when our pharma company was getting into generics, I'm sure you would have seen the struggle they had. Now generics are being accepted in the US. When we came out with a video laryngoscope, believe me, we enroll ourselves in GEM portal, and we are shocked to find about 15 of them saying as if they purchased and there was a negative review saying to blacklist us. And we have not sold any of them. We are just registered, and it's been hardly about 3 months. We didn't even know, but then it was brought to our notice. So they are going to try everything, and that's what I say. That's the best part of being in an academic institution, where it's a government also is going to get involved. The government is also going to support you. So most of your O's are going to be taken away, where you're going to go through the incubator. Incubator is going to have its own investors, and it's not needed for you to get into the company. If you want, you can do it. Otherwise, those company can also take it up, but there is going to be an understanding wherein the price limit and all that is going to be discussed by the technology office. So the government is coming out with policies for all of this because they really want to push the Make in India in a very big way for healthcare too.
Sir, I would like to congratulate you for an excellent, inspiring talk. As everything starts young, so the medical curricula that we teach, I think we should include something like health economics, because when we graduate out, we do not have any idea of how to use finances optimally, where to get the funding, how is a patent filed, what is IPR. These things should be taken up at a very young age. When the graduate passes out, he should be well versed with economics and funding. So that module, maybe 15 days, 20 days, but at least that exposure is a must when you want to venture into such fields.
Correct, madam. That's why the government has come out with the ICMR DHR policy, where all of these are going to be addressed. Because until now, even the startup or innovation was being concentrated more on the technical rather than medical side. So now with the policy coming in, these are all included. All your questions are included as part of the policy. So any institution which is going to start will have all this in place.
It was a wonderful talk. I had a point regarding something you brought out about the AI and the difficulty you have in converting data, images, etc. Now, is it possible to have some kind of central repository for such data? For example, you manage your shooting images, for example. Now, these kind of scenarios, you have got 25,000 images, and that's not enough, quite enough. You need a million probably. Now, if every individual who's about searching out images, cross inadequate, and you do that. What is the role of the institute? Was an clinical area body for getting to a certain specialty? What would be the role of these in helping us achieve this goal of getting into networking online or AI?
Well, this is going to be, the role is going to be the institution should be willing to allow its images. Like if you look at the repositories which are talked about, US, most of the people who get into AI on the technical side, they use those repositories to train the machine and to come out with an algorithm. But unfortunately, it fails when it comes to the live because the scenario is different. Like I'll give you an example. Like last week when you were talking about with IIT, they said the retinitis pigmentosa, which the algorithm developed by US, was not correlating with the Indian thing because Indian thing has got a completely different. So they are reworking on coming out with our own algorithm, and that's what happens. Majority of them they use the US repositories, but your question can be answered only at the policy level, at the institution level. So where the institution should be willing to upload it, and we have to ensure because it's going to be time consuming, because in the US you got enough and more money where the pharma companies all get involved. Probably here also will start changing because even this has happened only last week. So a few years down the line, we'll have the same thing where the institutions will be loading their images and others can take it.
While you were mentioning why people, especially doctors, are not too much innovative. So my point is, when you are talking about innovation research, so in the non-medical sector, you are encouraged to innovate research. Failures are not taken badly as a negative thing on your CV or your personality. But in our profession and more so in our society, we cannot fail. As doctors, if I say that I have failed 100 times and I have succeeded the 101st time, I don't think anyone would want to come to me to be the 102nd patient. So we as a profession have been brought up that we need to always succeed, always need to be the best. But whenever we are wanting people to innovate research, we should accept that there will be tons of failures, and it should not be taken as a negative part that he has failed. In the West, in the software industry, somebody sets up a startup and he fails. They rather, when he goes for a next time funding, they also look at the fact that he has tried twice, failed all 3 times. So people say that now he has known why he has failed, so he would most probably not repeat that mistake. So he is a much safer person to invest than a person who is coming for the first time. So maybe culturally we need to interpret this that it's fine if you fail, don't worry about it. So to put it like you say that if you innovate and research, you get promoted. So if someone innovates research and fails, maybe you're not talking for that and talk.
I really don't think so. The government has said, if you innovate and if you fail, we are not going to give. It said, you have to innovate, publish in a very high index to show that you have an interest in doing that. That's point number 1. Point number 2, I have failed so many things, and I never hide it. I would say, in fact, I tell them, you learn from me. That comes from the confidence. We are more bothered about what others think than what we want to know. And I'm least bothered. In fact, even my patients, I tell them, this is the way I am. If you want to come, come. If you don't want to come, don't come. When we have an auto driver or plumber who's confident, why should a doctor not be confident? It's all up to you. I never accept, I accept my failures. I'm not perfect. I have gone through a lot in life, but I have been always open. I said, this is what I am.
So very interesting and very informative talk. A lot of things we covered, and there are multiple things we have seen in the slide. At AIIMS Jodhpur, we are doing a lot of innovation. There is a critical mass of faculty members, students who are very much inclined to that, and we have a good collaboration with IT. But my basic question, what I am not able to understand is that there are a lot of investment by the government, by the research institute like BIRAC, KGVK, and a lot of ITs are doing. But why are we not finding the product which is we are as a clinician able to utilize to the patient? I think only few products we are able to test or apply for the general public, but most of the things, whether we talk about the ventilators, whether we talk about oxygen concentrators, we have never been able to apply to the general public where it is required. So what are the reasons in your
So the reasons are 2 things. That's why I said the validation. Most of them, 90% of them, they go B2C. because that's going to be much more easier. If you're going to use a concentrator, then you need to be validated, you need to get permission, you need to get regulatory approvals. They find it very tough because most of them will be having an investor who wants to have returns. Okay, that's point number one. Two, they need to have the resources to do all those validations. When I started all this laryngoscope, I spent 6 months to study the regulatory approval of each and every country. Now we have a presence in 3 countries. We have filed for US patent. Once we get it, we'll be entering into US too. But, that takes time for you to realize. And, coming to your question, that's all is going to be sorted out in an institution like this, where you're going to have a person who's an authority in regulatory approval and will be guiding you, this is what you need to do. So the shortage is not because it's not there. It's because of more on the ROI by the investor, and two, for the technical people not having the amount of contacts on the medical side where they can do such research or such validations.
Actually, that is what we are observing. That is, as a clinicians, I am more concerned with the ethical issues, moral responsibility. But as a technocrat, whether they have the same view,
No.
That they and that's why we are encouraging the clinical immersion for the so that they come and contact with the patient and the real problems with the patient.
That's a very good point. Whenever I do a project, I always insist that either the main researcher or someone, never accept BTech. Either it should be MTech or PhD. They have to come on site. They have to come under the circumstances in which the doctors work. Let it be even now when we are going to work. Those researchers themselves have said they know under what conditions we work because they visited on site on the earlier project. They know the challenges we are facing. So we have to, do that. And that's why we have to come out. That's why I said even in the beginning of the slide, the doctors should leading the innovation. It should not be the technocrats who should lead the innovation on the medical front.
I wanted to and AI in ophthalmology. We're very fortunate to have the funders itself. And very likely to share all these things happen outside India, outside of India, but we are not necessarily practicing have any experience in AI.
Oh, I have lots. In fact, we even try to reach, I don't want to discuss open thing, but yes, we are doing about, 4 projects in AI in ophthalmology. And, yes, we are experienced and probably we can talk in person. In fact, I was telling him the challenges I had in picking up few people. So.
Thanks, Dr. Kumaresh, for such an igniting talk. I'll request our Director Sir and Dean Sir, Dr. Kuldeep and Director Sir to please come over stage to hand over a souvenir.
Wonderful talk, sir. I really enjoyed it.